Good morning. This is yet another cut with the famous Auto Hub show. This is the first of our, first of our two shows this week. We're doing a new fixed op show every Friday. So if you're in the fixed op side of the house, first one was last week, and the next one will be this week. So we'll be doing one every single week. So if you're on the fixed op side, don't worry. We're doing a live show for you as well. So I'm going to start this morning with one of a series of interviews I'm in process of feverishly editing, like that guy from what is it, Bruce Almighty, to try and catch up. But this is from Lot Links. And since we're talking about the future today, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about the future of AI with Lot Links, being that there was a discussion around AI and sort of what you should call it. So this interview is already live on our YouTube channel and will be live on audio shortly. But I thought I'd do a sneak peek of a little bit of a preview. So here we go. So that's a part of the interview with Len Short, who's the CEO of Lot Links. If you're interested in the full interview, it is now live on our YouTube channel and will be on audio platforms very shortly. So if you are interested in more of that, I talked about AI and that we shouldn't call it AI, which was kind of interesting. But more importantly, it was kind of interesting that their head office is now in Toronto because I don't know if you've seen the Blackbird movie, but part of that movie, it was like, oh, we have the best engineers. And he goes, no, we have the best engineers in Canada. So I thought that was kind of funny to be talking about that. But anyway, here we go.
Life is about connection, having a support system to lean on, and roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
One of the really nice things about Larry, one of the reasons that we brought him to our dealership is he's so very much aligned with our core values. So with our brand, which is thoughtful and professional service. And because that alignment really worked out well, because he was so committed to the success of others, we really knew that he was the right person to spend time with our sales team, with our managers and each sales consultant. And we're just really thrilled to have a partnership with him. And so we thank him.
How do you adventure? Is it fast? Is it free? Is it clear? Is it rugged? Is it remote? For your next adventure, trust MotorClose for buying, selling, trading, and protecting all of your motorized assets. Powered by Disclose Dealership Management Dashboard, your all-in-one DMS, CRM, menu, lead gen, inventory, staff, client, and deal management solution. Disclose DMD, like a DMS, only better. Mention promo code AutoHub2025 to get special pricing, including waive setup costs, no contract, and your first month's free.
Car dealers often underestimate the power of social media. Are you wondering why my face is plastered in your newsfeed? Are you a GM, dealer principal, or a manager at a car dealership wondering why you see me all the time on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and all over social media? Well, that didn't happen by chance. I target car dealers that are in-market shoppers for social media services, and I'm going to do the exact same thing for you so that you target in-market shoppers for your brand of customers that purchase your vehicles. During my Viato days, helping car dealers appraise and price cars, everyone was asking me, what do I do on social media? What do I do with Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? And this was back in 2016. So here we are 10 years later. I started a company, became an entrepreneur, and now I help car dealers. They either outsource their social media needs to us, or we have a training and education center where we can teach all of your employees how to do social media in-house. 90% of consumers actually follow a business on Instagram. The average adult sits on TikTok for 2 hours a day in the rabbit hole. To learn more information about it or to get a demo from one of my sales associates, click the link below. We would absolutely love to help you.
All right. Good morning and welcome. And if you are interested in the rest of that interview, it is up on our YouTube channel. It will be syndicating today, probably for all the other channels in terms of audio. And you will see, obviously, see it on video. But if you want to listen to audio, that should be live tomorrow as it syndicates on all the platforms. So we have two great guests today. Brandy couldn't make it, and Larry, I know, is en route to a new location, so he wasn't sure what's going to happen. So it'll probably be like on Friday where he's sort of in and sort of out. But obviously today I want to talk about the future. I mean, we've been talking a lot about customer experience for many years, and I think we want change. I get it, everybody does. But the question I would ask is, what do you think the future of automotive retail will actually be? So I'm going to start with Danny. So Danny, maybe you can introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do and answer that question.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Ian.
Yep.
Always fun to chat with you. It's great seeing you
Yeah.
at NADA. My name is Danny Benitez. I'm COO of a company called Zip Deal. And up until about 4.5 years ago, I spent the previous almost 40 years inside the walls of car dealerships, from washing cars out of high school to was fortunate enough to end up owning some stores and kind of working through step by step through the business, banging my head on every rafter in the building. And so about 4.5 years ago, we started a company called Zip Deal, where we create really cool digital experiences for the customer during uncomfortable times at the dealership, primarily the F&I wait. So we're a tech company. We serve dealers and OEMs. And that's my story. So really a car guy turned tech solutions guy, and that's my story. And what's the future of automotive retail going to hold? Wouldn't we all love to know that? I think we're in an age, and I'm so glad you have Doug on here because I'm a huge A to Z fan, and I think what he does and what we do really kind of it's process automation, and it's giving the customer a little more speed, transparency, and control. And I think the future is really not pushing a customer through the sales process. We're going to allow the customer to be an active participant in their own deal and work things through at their pace, join them where they are, and expedite this process. But I think Doug will tell you this. I don't think the future of automotive retail is, digital retailing or direct to customer. I think we are going to continue to have options. Even when digital retail got the big wind in their sails several years ago, always thought it was an interesting option for a customer, but it's not going to be the option. Nothing that we talk about in the future of automotive is going to take it all over. There's just going to be options. Some are going to fade in and out, but our industry will remain a collection of options for the customer, because every dealership operates a different way, every car drives a different way, and every customer is looking for a little bit of a different experience. So adaptability, right, and options. I think that's what technology is going to provide for us, is some options. And of course, AI, the most popular thing. Everybody wanted to talk about it in the ADA. It's great. I think it's to help us with some of the mundane stuff. But if I was going to sum it up, I'd say the future of automotive is leveraging digital to create options and different pathways for customers to have a good experience at the dealership.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, in that interview, and if you watch it, you'll hear he says, well, we don't call it AI, we call it this. I won't spoil it, but it was kind of interesting. But Doug, introduce yourself, the famous Doug Reeves, and talk about the future.
I don't know if I'd say famous, maybe infamous, but Doug Reeves of A to Z Sync, and we've been really pushing one thing for over 10 years, which is just we want to redefine with customers what it's like to buy a car at a dealership. Okay, we want to change their perception of buying a car at a dealership. And to Danny's point, there's a lot of paths that can be taken, and I think that the future, what the future is going to hold, is hopefully a couple of things. One, the dealers really take advantage of being flexible. To Danny's point, I mean, there are people that will want to do an entire deal online, and I think as time goes on, there'll be more and more, because you'll get to the point where it's a simple process, and there'll be guardrails in place to make sure it's done right. But there are also people that want to come in, kick tires, negotiate the whole 9 yards. What I do think could drive some interesting changes in the industry is simply the downward pressure on profitability. I mean, I saw something yesterday that dealership profits in 2024 dropped almost 25%. Front-end grosses are going down on both new and used. Finance basically is stagnant. I think when you combine that, and I think that'll continue to be a downward pressure. I think you look at that, then dealers will look for different ways to regain some profitability, and it may be a change in your sales process. Like, we've certainly helped a multitude of dealers eliminate economic deal in a one-person sales model. That is is incredibly well received by customers and employees alike. So I think that there'll be some pressure there. I also think that just over time, slowly, the industry will recognize the fact that their antiquated processes just are no longer relevant, and that they'll have to be changing. I think technology may play a role, but I'm hoping that it plays a minor role. In other words, as we discussed last week, Ian, I'm not a proponent of that, just adding more and more technology just to try to get things done. I'm a proponent of finding the right technology that can perform multiple functions and actually lessen the tech stack, but increase efficiencies.
100%. I mean, I bought a magazine on my last trip through the snowstorm called How AI Can Transform Your Organization from Harvard Business Review. The last one was just on AI. It was November. Some of it was already dated by the time they wrote it. But the other one that I got from Troy, I believe, at the show was 2025 Insights. If you're interested in a copy, you can reach out to Troy Glenn. I have a few hard copies if you're in the Calgary area, but if you're interested in a copy, you're happy to send it out to you. But the key piece, and I think both of you hit it right on the head, not every customer, when you look at that group of individuals looking at your brand or store, is going to want to do things in the road to the sale way from 100 years ago. Some of them may, but as we look at demographics and we look at technology and we look at cost of doing business in terms of staffing costs, overhead costs, digital costs, product costs, it's got to make sense for people, but more importantly, it's got to make sense for the dealer, and it has to be easy. And I think some of the best technology out there is easy. One of the sponsors of the show is a company I work for called VidCalls, which makes it really easy, but it's not a high-tech solution. It's really about how can I reach out and talk to a person and get help. And it's interesting as you look at companies today in retail, all types, that are trying to streamline things, but in some cases, they go down a rabbit hole that doesn't make sense. But when we look at things like AI, flying cars, direct-to-consumer retail, Amazon Auto, Carvana, Rivian. I mean, I know there's been some interesting articles this weekend on Tesla with their issues with their Cybertruck. But when you look at the OEM experience, I go back a couple of years ago when I worked for a website company. Porsche Global had tried to integrate, I don't know what they're doing today, but they tried to integrate globally that website experience to the retail experience to try and make it consistent, much like McDonald's and other brands have done. And I guess my question there is, what do you think that experience will be as the OEM finally, sticks to their guns and say, listen, like, we got to make this consistent. Like it's no longer like, let's wing it, or let's use this technology if you like, or that technology if you like, or this experience if you like. There was another experience that I heard about on the weekend. It was a Chrysler customer who, I guess, he had a 90-day demo with an app for his Chrysler truck or something. And they called him and they said, oh yeah, you want to cancel, you got to give us your credit card. He goes, well, no, I'm not paying for it. I'm canceling it. And they're like, well, we don't, that's not an option. You got to give us your credit card. He's like, no, like I don't, I just want to cancel. And it was interesting because there was this disconnect between the sales team, the customer, and the dealer. But as soon as the customer went to the dealer was like, yeah, we can handle that. We'll just talk to Chrysler. But it was the inconsistency is I think the big challenge. It's not so much road to the sale. I think that's historical in a lot of cases. It's how do I make that experience top of the pops, but more importantly, how do I get ahead of these other companies? So maybe Doug can speak to that, since we know we were talking about Amazon last week. What were you hearing from dealers say, hey, I want to get ahead of this and create an Amazon experience? Like, what do you think?
Well, let's step back a second. You talked about a consistent experience. I think there's a couple of things the OEMs could do along those lines. One would be, I think OEMs need to quit dictating the platforms that dealers have to utilize, because some of those platforms, candidly, aren't doing anything to update or modernize what they're offering.
Right.
And when the OEMs start mandating the technologies that a dealer has to utilize, that often then minimizes the effectiveness or what the ultimate, outcome could be. Maybe OEMs should more focus on partnering with dealers and incentivizing them to have whatever the platform is, be more streamlined, be more efficient, regardless of the provider. So I think that's one thing. I think as far as the Amazon experience, we're still in our infancy. It's proving to be very, very well received. And I think that part of that is because the platform itself is so established, so entrenched, so trusted. And some of these other platforms that dealers utilize don't have that same cachet as far as, universal usage, as far as, the results that they generate. So I think there'll be a constant challenge with other platforms to try to get to that. And finally, I think that the key thing is that there can be nothing lost in translation. So in other words, whatever the customer does, the dealer has to be able to pick up where they left off and just keep moving forward. There can't be a need to take 5 steps back and say, tell me how you got here, because that erodes the experience entirely, and that creates inefficiencies. And that just continues to perpetuate, this feeling that this industry is it's just not customer centric. Right.
I agree with you 100% there. Danny, what do you think?
Yeah, everything you just said, I agree with. And, we get into I think it's just conflicting objectives. We have different people participating. The OEM wants a seat with the customer, right? They want their objectives to be pushed over to the customer. The dealership OEM relationship, they're supposed to be on the same team, but they have conflicting objectives. So as a dealer, we always felt like the OEMs were shoving technology down our throat. We have to use this, even though, like Doug said, it's outdated. And it's actually, my partner said something pretty profound. He says, for far too long, technology has been dictating our processes as dealer, and it should be the other way around. Our processes should dictate the technology. And I'm not plugging, but that's what we do. We build our technology around every individual dealer the way they want it, as A to Z Sync does some degree. Mm-hmm. So we have to just align with these objectives because they're all different. But think about it. The OEM has an objective with that dealer, and sometimes that's conflicting. The dealership and its management, the management and the salespeople and the customer. So you have these layers of different objectives. And the thing I love about A to Z Sync and about our company, about a lot of forward-thinking companies out there, is the customer is the person that gets to decide. So let's create these technologies thinking them first, and try to satisfy these other people that have very viable interests in this car deal. I don't want to discount that. They all do, and they all belong in there. But it's a lot of mouths to feed. But I think that our business and the technology that we use inside of our business need to mirror other technologies that are very successful out there. We're used to seeing things in a certain way when we're on Amazon, when we're on social media, when we're interacting with this other software. And then you go into Jurassic Park. You go into a car dealership, and all of a sudden now it's Sharpies are flying and all this stuff. This is not what I'm used to in the rest of the world. And so we got to get out of this time warp situation when you walk in there. And it needs to mirror some of these other technologies, because at the end of the day, we have to do something that's going to create a good experience for them. And we have to satisfy these different people. And the smart cookies out there like Doug, they're going to create solutions for this. And the people who can be really pliable and pivot, and I dare I say some of the smaller companies that can make those changes without the red tape, I think are going to benefit in this economy, in this digital economy we're in. So,
yeah, the other thing I think is interesting is there's certainly been some studies that indicated that the generation now that's starting to enter into the buying fold, let's call it, actually want to be helped. They don't know how to buy. They've done everything. They've just done click and buy. And that's pretty easy when you're buying a video game or what have you. But now that you're buying a $60,000, $70,000 vehicle, a lot of these people are saying, I do need help. I don't know really what I'm doing. And the process today isn't the same as when my parents bought a car when they were doing it. So I think the ability to connect with the customer and find out exactly what do they need, how can we help you, to what degree do I need to hold your hand, and truly just consult. One of the things that we try to do here at A to Z is, instead of having the process dictated to the customer, what we try to do is have the customer participate in the process. And there's a big difference when it's a shared experience and the customer feels like, to a large degree, they're driving it, and the person next to me is just merely my driving coach that's teaching me when to hit the brakes and when to accelerate. That kind of insights will be critical moving forward, I think, especially as EVs become more mainstream. People, I don't speak EV. I'm going to want my hands held. So let's face it, there's a lot of opportunity. So the question is, who's willing to harvest the opportunity?
100%. Yeah, it was funny. I was reading an article earlier this morning about EVs and how the opportunities in used EVs, which I've been projecting on the show for a long time, which I thought was interesting. But to your point, Doug, okay, I'm buying a used EV or a new one. The battery, how do I deal with that? Like what does that look like? And obviously, that's an educational thing. But to your point about new consumers, maybe they've been indoctrinated with the Google side or the Apple side or the Amazon side or whatever their, GameStop, and they're in that ecosystem and they understand how it works. But now they have to build brand loyalty on the car side, whether that be Tesla or Rivian or Honda or whatever the brand is. How are those companies going to not only attract those customers, but meet those expectations, which have now increased? 20, 30 years ago, there wasn't these, experiential companies that were on the internet that were doing this. Today there are. So I think the dealers really need to look at it and say, okay, how can I meet that bar or exceed it? But more importantly, and this sort of tees up the next question, when you look at the number of franchise dealers, there's about 5,000 in Canada that are franchised, about 12,000 independents. In the US, I think it's about 15,000-ish and about 120,000 independents. How many of these franchise dealers or dealer groups that have small amounts of points do you think will remain and be able to adapt to this? I mean, that's the big question I have.
Well, yeah, that's a good question. And that depends on the individual's, greed, I suppose. I think there's an awful lot of small, independently owned franchise stores that are perfectly content with the profits they're making, the lifestyle they lead, and with the legacy and how they can, pass it on to generations to follow. So I think there's going to be a chunk of those that are going to say, you know what, I'm good with this. I think the challenge for the industry is, for those particular type of dealerships, is can you entice or attract that next generation to stay on board, to not just take the quick cash, sell it, and do something else, to literally see the value of being part of the community. I'm talking to a dealership in the middle of Nebraska, and we know that they're probably the integral to the community as far as what's going on. And those are the type of stores to me that really drive America. I mean, the big corporations are great, but they're corporations. And it really ultimately comes down to the feel and the way they interact, what are they entrenched in the community. And I think that those smaller stores, I'm hoping that they stay. I love smaller groups. Big corporations are great, but they're big corporations. You lose the personal touch. And when you look at the pendulum of things, it's like now we're grabbing AI and all this, but I'm hoping at some point the pendulum swings back and says, no, it's about the one-to-one relationship. Because, as a gentleman said last week on this call, people buy from people they like. We need customers that just like us. We need to get back to those fundamental selling tactics.
I agree with that. Danny, what do you think?
Yeah, I think along that line, and I liked what you said about kind of the heart and soul of the dealership. And I think the smartest thing for us to do is leverage our digital capabilities with, maybe putting that message out there of what this dealership's heart is all about. And we kind of do that in our platform too. Again, not plugging it, just we're able to create a digital and an emotional experience to where it's more than just buying the car, right? They buy a car there for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have to get them emotionally involved. We want to keep them in our life cycle. That retention is important. And they're not going to do it because the metal and the lights and the leather and all that. They're going to do it because they're dealing with people that they know and trust. They also feel like the money they're spending at that dealership is doing something bigger than themselves. And so being able to get them emotionally involved is important. And being more than the car, there's another side of that also. Dealerships can't survive on the front end profit of a car alone. And especially now with everything, front end profits are shrinking. I think a lot of this will drop off. We came off the post-COVID ether. But I think we are going to look at tighter as we become healthier as a company, as a country. I think those, competition is going to keep those margins down. And so selling the car and even financing it, because making money in finance is going to continue to become more challenging. So what are the other things that we do at this dealership that tell them about our heart, that can help us create more profit for the dealership? But customers have to be made aware that one of the things that we do, and we leverage, again, psychology and a digital platform. But I think we can utilize all this tech and all these things we're talking about and really make sure that the customer that's buying the car understands all the other things they can do at that dealership, all the other things the dealership's involved with. And your original question, survival is going to depend on adaptability, right? And it doesn't always mean the most tech forward thing. They're just going to have to adapt because they're going to have to sell cars the way people want to buy cars. And what you said earlier, Doug, about the generation of people that we're selling, they do want some help. But sadly, I think in our business, we're saying, we're going to help you. We're going to help you the way we want to help you.
Yeah.
Instead of, we're going to help you the way that you want to be helped. We need to help you in a TikTok kind of way, right? I mean, we need to help you in a way that you understand, that feels good. So we're the ones that have to adapt. It's too long we've been asking our customers to adapt to us. And well, that's an exercise in futility. That's not going to happen. We got to meet them where they're at. We got to talk to them in their language, and that's something. It's something we haven't been great at, but I think we're getting better, and that's what we need to look forward to.
100%.
Ian, you talked about big groups and acquisitions. We deal with virtually every major group, and the groups that I really appreciate are the ones that the group may have bought the store, but the GM or the executive manager at that particular store runs the store, and he gets to do what he thinks is best. And there's only a few things that he has to adhere to from a corporate standpoint. That's the smartest way, I think, for these major entities to operate, is keep that local feel, even though you're a multinational for all intents and purposes.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. I saw on the weekend another ad it was tire storage for life, and it kind of echoed the oil change for life thing. And I also wanted to bring up, I think it's Subaru does it, Love Your Subaru, where they give money to charity when people buy cars. But they got to look for innovative ways, the car dealer on the sales side of the house, but also on the fixed op parts and service side of the house, to really start to finally destroy those silos and bring them together. But also to support that local community. I mean, I've seen a lot of those pictures with the Happy Gilmore checks or Price is Right checks or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's more about, okay, when a customer, to your point, is given a choice of, Sonic Auto Group store number B or Penske Auto Group store C or Bob's store that happens to be owned by Lithia, where they like Buffett's companies, they let them run the store. That's a big difference, right? Because it's like I'm talking to the dealer. Maybe they're owned by a corporation, but the dealership is still part and fixture of that community. And I think that's what makes a difference.
Exactly. I mean, one of the key aspects of our platform is the very first thing we like the salespeople to do is to talk about the dealership, what makes them different. Not what you get when you buy a car, but this is why doing business with us will be different. This is what we mean to the community. This is what it's all about. So that you immediately separate that store from any other store they've been to. Because they probably haven't heard it elsewhere, and they won't hear it if they go elsewhere. So this is your one chance to shine. Right at the very beginning, this is what we're about. This is what we stand for. And then make sure every action that you do thereafter reflects what you just said.
And so maybe it's not about maybe it's not about that corporate experience. It's about, Bob's Big Boy experience or Bob's Chev experience, and how we're different from everybody else, not just because we're listening to the customer and changing the route of the sale, eliminating friction, but because we're different from the get-go. There's a reason someone prefers Denny's over Waffle House, to pick two random brands. It's about that difference in experience. And I was watching an interesting YouTube video. I think it's a Mexican restaurant in Colorado that the guys from South Park bought because they had fond memories of this place. It was Bonita something or other, but
Casa Bonita.
Yeah.
You still can't get a normal reservation. It's a landmark in Colorado, in the Denver area, but the food was horrible. It had gone downhill. So the guys from South Park bought it, pumped in a bunch of money. And now it's like everybody, I mean, my brother and his family are coming here in the summer from the East Coast, and they're like, we want to go to Casa Bonita. I'm like, wow, okay. I mean, you didn't used to get that. There used to be a place where you went and got crappy food, but they're cliff divers. So yeah.
Yeah, that story was really interesting. I had no idea. My brother used to live in Denver years ago, but I had no idea. But it was interesting because it was like, to your point, it was like, okay, we created this experience around a restaurant where it was supposed to be about food, but it had nothing to do with food. It was the experience that was important. And I think car dealers, even though they like to do the putting green and the massage part and all that, they could create an experience at their store that stood them apart, no matter what the brand is. What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, too long the why buy here, right? We went through why buy here mania, which is fine, but it just seemed like everyone, why buy from ABC Motors? We have a large inventory. Wow, we have the lowest prices. No kidding, that's incredible. You get free oil changes for X amount of time. It's great, but again, you're not separating yourself from anyone. But Doug, I'm going to date myself, but back at the old, I guess one price. I did one price in 1990. A long time. But the first thing you did in that old one price deal was you came out with your base statement, and it was memorable. You had to do your base statement. Are you familiar with our company? Let me tell you how we operate. And it's the first thing. I mean, you haven't introduced yourself. You do that, and then you introduce yourself and you get to know them. But the base statement, needs to be things like, I want to tell you about the heart of our dealership. This is what we believe. This is what our mission is. These are the places we support. This is who you're going to do business with. And attached with that customer at the heart, before you do with the hand, now you've got something that is a really unique selling proposition, right? It's a unique experience. And so, yeah, there's so much to that. Don't even get me started on,
I know you could do a whole show on that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that the differentiator there is pretty evident. And I think we've made that point that, understanding the heart of that dealer is going to be what keeps them, not the size of it or how many stores are in the group, how many rooftops, right?
So how long do you think dealers have to upgrade that process or upgrade that experience or change the way they present or change the way they interact? Like, what do you think? Like, what's the expiration date here?
There's no expiration date. I mean, they have forever to do it, but the sooner the better. But, I mean, Ian, you've been talking about this for how long?
6 years.
There you go. I mean, and we're not seeing a titanic shift yet. We're starting to see it slowly but surely. So, I mean, they have time to do it, but, there's always the early adopters, and then there's always the laggard adopters. And the laggard adopters will be the one that'll be left on the curb because everybody else will have already been way far ahead of them. And I think, and we all know this isn't earth-shaking news, but a better experience yields higher grosses because people will pay for the experience. We have a group here, and to your point, Danny, the group here in Colorado, Shop Automotive, they were one of the first to go one price in the early 90s, like 91, 92. And then they went one person, and then they trademarked one price, one person, 1 hour. And they're known for it. And you know what? I have no idea how much a car costs at Shop, but I do know that everybody goes there. And I do know that they don't negotiate because they don't have to. And I do know that they crush the competition because their experience is so dang good, price becomes irrelevant. It really does.
Truth.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. A number of years ago, there was all this like, we price our used cars at market value, or we always serve our best price or whatever, that kind of stuff. And that's really, there's no need to even go into that. It's what, how quickly can I get the car? How pleasant is the experience? How easy is it to buy the car? And when can I have it? That's really what it comes down to. And I think that's why I brought up that tire storage for life, or even, tires at cost is another thing I see. Why are you doing that? It's like realtors who go, 1%. Or I think it was in New Orleans. Oh, well, we'll only take 25% for our personal injury claim. Like, that's our cut. Like, that was what he was advertising. It wasn't that I'm the best lawyer in New Orleans. It was like, I'm the best lawyer because I'm cheaper. It's just
Ian,
that was crazy.
Ian, you're a studious gentleman.
That's right.
You probably know this off the top of your head. What's the average age of a dealer principal right now in the United States and Canada? Do you know?
55. Be my guess.
I had heard it was in the 70s. I mean,
Really?
You know?
I know, but
Average age, I don't know that data.
young 55-year-olds, that's young to me.
So you think it's in their 70s? Really?
The reason I ask, and it may be, and I'm sure you'll find out and you'll bring it up. But the point is that my hope is that the next generation of leadership is starting to come in, and the next generation of leadership will have the courage to make the changes that the current generation of leadership isn't willing to make. There's, and there's a lot of wisdom in the 70, 75-year-old dealer principle that, hey, look at the empire I built. But the fact is, they're of the it ain't broke, don't fix it. Whereas the next generation is, hey, maybe we should break it so that we do fix it. And so I think as more and more people adapt that latter attitude and are willing to say, no, we need to change. My phone is starting to ring more with people saying, look, we recognize what's going on now with the market. We can't keep doing what we used to do. Hopefully more and more dealers start seeing that, leadership starts seeing that, because it needs to happen. It just needs to happen, in my opinion.
So you think that's age centric? You think that's age centric? You think that it's that 70-year-old or that 75-year-old is still kicking around a lot? That's the reason, you think? That it hasn't changed?
I don't know if it's a causal relationship, but there certainly perhaps could be a correlational relationship. Danny, what did ChatGPT say?
72.
Wow.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah, the average age is 72. The average age of black auto dealers is 60.
Interesting.
I think, you're seeing some, I think some of these programs of the OEM that are bring in other ethnicities and younger people, those programs I think, will bring the age down. But I think that, I think you're right. I mean, I think, when's this going to change? Well, kind of the same way everything else changes, right? It's generational, and different people, technologies are creating us to have different habits. Nowadays, we want, and I think it was it Walzer 2 or 3 years ago to NADA said customers from today are looking for speed, transparency, and control, right? That's kind of a younger thing. It's the technology we have and the age. And however, I will say this, however quickly we've needed to adapt over the last 20 years is no indication of the speed in which we're going to have to adapt in the next 20 years. Because information is doubling at breakneck speed. And so adaptability is going to have to at least somewhat follow that trend.
I think so. I think you're right.
We have to accelerate the adaptation. Yeah.
I do think that, if the average dealer is 72, I mean, look, I'm 62 years old. It is hard to get me to change a habit. When new technology comes out, I usually, like, my daughter bought me this new sound system for our house, and I said, you friggin' set it up. I'm not going to deal with it. Right? You set it up and just tell me how to turn it on, because that's all I want to do. So, using that same logic, I think there's an awful lot of dealers that are like, look, that's all well and good, but I'm not doing it. It's not until now. There's a percentage of them that are saying, "I'll listen to the next generation." Okay, I see that. I think a lot of them are entrenched in their ways, and that's what's stagnating the change.
Well, yeah. I mean, I look at a group. I think they're on a trail called this. I think they're called the Zanken Auto Group, where the two daughters run the show, but the dad's still involved, and he's an ex-body shop guy. I think originally from Germany. Like, how much does he have to do with it? I don't know, but probably when it comes to signing a check or getting it done, yeah, he's probably part of that conversation. But to your point, do you really want to focus on, okay, can you explain both these devices to me? Pick your device and then show him how to do it. I mean, I always use the example of my uncle. He had a computer. I remember visiting him way back, and he had a computer on his desk, and he wasn't a computer guy. And I said, what's the deal with that? He goes, oh, that isn't even plugged in. That's just for the guys from the OEM. So they're impressed when they come to see me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's an example of it.
Yeah.
You're right. And it's amazing. I mean, there are potential clients that I've talked to regarding the Amazon opportunity, where the young generation is saying, yeah. The old generation says, we're not doing that. There you go. And you're like, oh, wow, okay, that's fine, but you're not embracing the future, and it's staring you right in the face and trying to slap you in the nose.
So how do you think the dealer can dip their toe in the water? How can they jump in and do something versus just going, yeah, I'm going to wait till my dad kicks it, and then we'll figure it out?
Well, selfishly, reach out to me.
I can't believe you asked him first.
Go ahead, Danny. Go ahead.
I was going to say zipdeal.com is the best way to jump right into the future with a hybrid technology that's the best of the traditional sense and bringing them into the new generation. So, yeah, I think signing up with both of our companies is the smartest thing anyone can do.
And what about the example Doug was given with, I don't know how to do it. I just want it to work. Will you guys help with, like, I don't know, doing some heavy lifting there?
Well, I don't want to get into the sales world, but yes, we have to do that. I think, but to get back to your general question, how do you do it? They need to reach out to, well, first off, they need to talk to peers that are doing it and find out their level of comfort. And by peers, I'm not just saying same, OEM, same franchise, but maybe a guy that's your same age is kind of you gel with. How did you do that? And get them to kind of create the comfort, say it's going to be okay, buddy. That's why 20 groups should be doing. It's okay, dip your toe in it. And then go out to a trusted technology company and just say, I don't want to sign up with you. At this point, I just want to know, what do you do? What are the results I'm going to get? And why does this make sense to me? Educate me. And if they're naturally intellectually curious, that will help the first step. And I think that's the way I would do it. What about you, Danny?
Yeah, I think the first, as a dealer, I'm putting my dealer hat back on. I think the first thing you do is do a real life, painful, honest audit of the full customer experience. I mean, and you're going to have to do it. It's going to be painful. Not with the rose-colored glasses of, oh, they'll do it. This is the way we've always done it. No, you're going to have to audit your process. And you're going to have to kind of lean Six Sigma, right? Let's find, there's a few points in that process that don't just need refinement. They suck, right? And they need overhaul. And that's why I'm a glutton for punishment. So we attacked the wait for F&I as the first thing we attacked. The worst thing that happens at a dark car dealership. So that's what we attacked. But if you look at every single thing, what a lot of people will find is, first of all, a dealership, 60% of the time a customer spends at the dealership is after they've said yes. Wow. Which is ridiculous. So the industry spent a quadrillion amount of dollars to get a customer to say yes. Right? We got to get the lead, find the lead, bring it in, do this, sales processes, all these things. And then they say yes, and our industry goes, right. And then the second half of the car deal is just terrible. It's just frustrating. So I think you have to audit their whole experience, and even after they say yes. And let's look at what the whole thing looks like and how we're getting them into our life cycle. And if you audit it, first thing, you don't know what to change if you don't know what to change. And so you have to audit that. And then I think you need to try to leverage some things that will help that. Then you need to make the necessary changes and modernize that sales process and adapt and start making fixed operations your backbone, right? And understand this is a bigger picture than a lead, an appointment, and a mark on the board. There's just a lot more to it. There's service, there's accessories, there's all the other things we do. Just talking about what we do in the community. So here, I'll sum it up by saying it's more than just the car sale. Just
I would go a couple steps further on that. I think it's a good idea to do a customer point of view. The other bringing customers in and saying, what did you like and what did you like? And the other thing I think would be really strong is you should do a tech audit. You should audit all the technologies you're currently working with. And don't do it from a high level. Do it at the ground level. Talk to the people that have to use it. What do you like? What sucks? What's redundant? What isn't? All that. And you combine everything that you and I have just shared, that will give them incredible insights as to here's some things we can do, certainly on the variable side. And I would do the exact same thing on the fixed side, those exact same steps on the fixed side. And then I would try to unite them too and say, okay, now what's common here? How do we link this all together?
Yeah, I mean, I always go back to the early days of the internet, and I believe it was 2000, I think was the stat that off the top of my head, was something like 60% of dealers didn't have a website at all in 2000. And there was interesting in the Lot Links interview, he talked a little bit about AI and websites. And I've heard a lot of echoes with sort of that .com crash with AI, where it's like there's 10,000 companies, there's going to be like XYZ. And I agree with the tech on it. When you look at the average car dealer, and I think we've had April before on the show talking about this, where they have all this technology they bought, most of it they don't even use or don't know how to use well. And then the question becomes, okay, what should I be using? And that I agree with that 100%. If you haven't experienced sort of the best store in your market, what that looks like, and the worst store in your market, and hopefully that's not you, how can you make a decision? But more importantly, talking to customers and saying, hey, what was your experience like? Tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, at least we can learn from it. I mean, even if that's good customers, some of them are afraid to tell you because they're like, yeah, well, it was crappy, but, I still like the place. But, if you were to go service your car, say at Jiffy Lube versus Walmart versus a dealer, there's a reason why in some cases that Jiffy Lube is beating you. And it's all about how was that customer treated when they called your store, or when they emailed your store, or when they interacted with your store, right? And I think the same is true with sales. You don't lose on price every single time. You lose on, I called 5 stores and these guys treated me right. And it wasn't even the brand, right?
Right. Exactly.
I think that's true. So we're down to final thoughts. God, this went by quickly. Let's start with Danny. What's your final thought on the future of the car business?
Well, again, thanks for having us.
Yeah, no worries.
It's always fun, and I'm so excited to meet my new best friend Doug. We learned on a lot of things, and his company, my company, we do two different things, but I think we have the same heart, which is really cool, and it's encouraging to me. And when we're talking about the future of our business, when I meet people like you, Ian, or see people like Doug out there, and people are doing really cool things for the right reasons, it's what just makes me really excited about the future of our business. I'm not one of those that like sit around and weep and complain about things. I'm excited. We've never been in a cooler time. And so let's use it for good, right? And let's move this thing forward. So, I think we just need to make this, I think summing it up, we need to listen as dealers. If I'm talking to dealers, listen to your people, listen to your customer, listen and adapt, audit, correct, and use technology to really get to those matters of the heart. Technology is great, but it has to accomplish kind of inside what it is that you're wanting to do. And so, I would say zip up your processes post yes, and I would say sync up your sales processes would probably be the end all statement. Would you agree?
Well, I
sync and zip would probably be a good idea.
No, here it goes. So, I would say that the key to the future is courage. They have to have the courage to be willing to say it's broken, to say that the emperor has no clothes. And if they have the courage to do that and they recognize that, then they have to take the corrective steps. And in the end, what you'll see is you'll have a zippy experience from A to Z.
I'm thinking about that Rolling Stones cover with the zipper. I don't know if you guys thought about doing a shirt with that.
We actually thought about putting a decal over the urinals that says your processes are unzipped. No judgment.
Did you see that trade pending shirt where they ripped off the Tabasco logo and put their own text in there? I thought that was pretty well done. Yeah.
But thank you, Ian. Thanks for having us, man.
No worries.
Good conversation.
All right. Have yourself a great week. And remember, Zip Deal and A to Z Sync. There will be details in the description for the video and audio below. If you have questions, just reach out. I'm sure they can help you dip your toe into the future personally. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks.
Yep.